At 82 years old, Jessi Colter has finally broken her silence, a silence that lasted more than 2 decades, stretching from the lonely final days of her husband Waylon Jennings' life to this very moment, when she's chosen to speak with remarkable clarity, honesty, and emotion about what really happened behind closed doors. For years, fans of outlaw country music have speculated about Waylon's last years, about how the man who defined a movement, who once stood shoulder to shoulder with Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, and Chris Christopherson, disappeared into silence and illness, leaving behind a legacy of rebellion but also a trail of personal heartbreak. Through it all, Jessi stayed mostly quiet. Occasionally, she gave interviews, often she offered grace, but rarely did she share the full truth of what happened in those final seasons of their life together. Until now. And what she's revealed is far more profound and far more painful than fans could have imagined. Jessi Colter wasn't just Waylon Jennings' wife. She was his anchor, his partner, his light in a world that often grew far too dark. They met in a whirlwind, bonded by faith and music, and despite addiction, betrayal, and fame that threatened to swallow them both whole, they remained together until Waylon's death in 2002. But the man the public saw, the leather-wrapped outlaw with the slow southern drawl and a guitar slung low, was only part of the story. The other part, the part Jessi has only now revealed, was much more human. It was about weakness, redemption, and a final Thanksgiving that changed everything. In the early 1980s, Waylon was spiraling, addicted to cocaine and amphetamines, losing weight, paranoid, and running out of money despite massive success. He was trapped in a lifestyle that had once seemed thrilling but had now become a prison. Jessi, raising their son Shooter and holding their home together through the chaos, begged him to stop. She prayed, she waited, and eventually, she acted. In 1984, she brought Waylon to their home in Arizona and told him he wasn't leaving. No more tour, no more drugs, no more destruction. For 2 weeks, he detoxed cold turkey. No doctors, no cameras, no applause. Just pain, real pain. Jessi stayed by his side the entire time, holding his hand, singing hymns, and watching the man she loved suffer like an animal until the drugs were gone from his system. That moment changed everything. It didn't make Waylon perfect, but it saved his life. He would later say that Jessi had more strength than any outlaw he'd ever met. She never bragged. She never ran. She simply stood when no one else could, but the world didn't stop turning. In the 1990s, Waylon's health declined. Years of drug use had taken a toll on his body. He developed diabetes, heart problems, and neuropathy in his legs so severe that it left him in constant pain. His weight ballooned. He could no longer perform with the fire he once had. He canceled shows. He avoided interviews. And as the years passed, he seemed to vanish. But behind the scenes, Jessi was still there, caring for him, loving him, and seeing, for the first time, the full vulnerability of a man the world only knew as a rebel. It all came to a head in 2001 on what would be Waylon's last Thanksgiving. Jessi remembers it clearly. The house was quiet. There was no grand feast, just the two of them, in a small room, the air heavy with the weight of the past. And it was there, Jessi says, that Waylon finally turned to God, not as a symbol, not as a show, but in genuine surrender. He asked her to pray with him. He said he was tired. He said he was sorry. And for the first time, Jessi says, he fully gave himself over, not to fame, not to music, but to grace. That moment, she believes, was Waylon's true redemption. Not on a stage, not in a studio, but in silence, with his wife, with his faith. And then, just a few months later, on February 13, 2002, Waylon Jennings died at home in Chandler, Arizona. There were no cameras, no chaos, just Jessi holding his hand and whispering that it was okay, that he could rest now. In the years that followed, Jessi withdrew from public life. She focused on raising Shooter. She continued her own music career quietly, releasing occasional albums that dealt with grief, love, and the strange freedom that comes after great loss. But she never really talked about Waylon's last days, not until now. And when she finally did speak at 82 years old, it wasn't with bitterness. It wasn't with the anger that would have been understandable. It was with love. A kind of painful, weathered love that only comes from standing beside someone through absolute hell and never letting go. Jessi's revelation isn't just about Waylon Jennings. It's about what it means to love someone fully, to suffer with them, to believe in their redemption even when the world only sees their failures. Her story is a reminder that the legends we admire are still just men, broken, proud, complicated men who need someone to hold them together when everything else falls apart. Today, Jessi Colter lives with quiet dignity. She still performs from time to time. She still sings songs that echo with the soul of the man she loved. And she still speaks of Waylon not as a myth, but as a man. She doesn't excuse the darkness. She just tells the truth. And in telling that truth, she's offered fans something more powerful than any outlaw ballad, a glimpse into the real cost of fame, the quiet strength of love, and the kind of faith that doesn't need to shout. It waits, it endures, and in the end, it saves. Jessi Colter's silence wasn't weakness, it was grace. And now that she's finally spoken, her voice is louder than ever. Subscribe to Hollywood Untold for more emotional stories behind music legends and the feuds that shaped rock history. Tap the bell to never miss a beat.